Let us revise an old lesson, transformation of sentences. Let me revise with you some rules which you should remember. Some common types of transformation that you need to learn for your examination. The first one, changing from affirmative to negative and vice versa. The second one, changing from assertive to exclamatory or to interrogative and the other way around. After that, changing the degree of comparison. Then, changing a simple sentence into a complex or a compound one and the other way around. Then you have interchange of one part of speech for another. After that, removing TOO2 and TO2 and using so and that instead. And then change of narration. And finally, change of voice. Changing an affirmative sentence to a negative one and vice versa. Let me teach you the first rule. Remember, you cannot change the meaning. Hence, you often have to use the opposite word of the adjective and use the word not. While changing a negative sentence into an affirmative one, use the opposite word of the adjective and remove the word not. Well, here is an example. The boy is absent, an affirmative sentence. You wish to make it negative. What you do? The opposite of absent is present. So you write, the boy is not present. It becomes negative. Say for instance, the sari is not expensive. A negative sentence. The opposite of expensive, cheap. Then you write, the sari is quite cheap. And it becomes affirmative. Now, changing an interrogative sentence into an assertive one is even easier. What you do? Just remove the word not and change the question mark to a full stop. An example, if you prick us, do we not bleed? An interrogative sentence. What you do? You write, if you prick us, we bleed. Full stop. Then, is not virtue its own reward? An interrogative sentence. What you do? Virtue is its own reward. And it becomes assertive. Note here, the word not is missing in the assertive sentence and the question mark has been replaced by a full stop. We shall now revise the methods of changing an assertive sentence to an exclamatory one and vice versa. Okay, to change an assertive sentence to an exclamatory one, follow these easy steps. Number 1, move the main verb to the end of the sentence. Step 2, remove adverbs like very, extremely, greatly, etc. Step number 3, that is, add what or how followed by a or an. Okay. Step 4, replace the full stop with an exclamation mark. Now here is an example. Sachin is a great player. Full stop. This is an assertive sentence. What we need to do is we need to change it into an exclamatory sentence. Now, what is step 1? Move the main verb to the end of the sentence. So here you see is comes at the end. Okay. Remove adverbs like very, greatly, extremely, etc. Here you don't have such things. Forget it. Add what or how followed by a or an. So you've begun your sentence with what a. Yes? Now, what a and great player you take from your main assertive sentence. So your exclamatory sentence is what a great player Sachin is. replace the full stop with an exclamation mark. Your step number 4, and you've done that. Okay. For the reverse process, bring the subject and the main verb in front. In this case, Sachin is the subject and the main verb come in front. Do away with what or how and replace the exclamation mark with a full stop. So what you do? You write Sachin is, delete what? A great player. No exclamation mark but a full stop. How do you change the degree of comparison? Okay, remember the 3 degrees of comparison. Positive degree, tall, used with as and as, as tall as. Then you have a comparative, say taller, used with than, taller than. And you have the superlative degree, that is tallest, and used with the tallest. Okay. Generally, the comparative and the superlative degrees remain the same in sentence constructions. Thus, Reza is the tallest boy in the class, the tallest superlative. Reza is taller than the other boys in the class. Taller than, comparative. However, in 90% cases, in the positive degree, the sentence turns negative. Therefore, no other boy in the class is as tall as Reza. Simple, complex and compound sentences. Let's revise how we change these. Remember, unlike the 2 other types of sentences, a simple sentence has only one finite verb and one independent clause. Hence, while converting a simple sentence into a compound or a complex one, keep these in mind. Number 1, break up the sentence into 2 or more clauses. And number 2, join with a coordinating conjunction in case of a compound sentence, or use a joining word like who or when or where in case of a complex sentence. Let's see an example. Hearing his father's footsteps, the boy ran away. This is a simple sentence. Okay, now let's see how we change it into a compound sentence. What we do? We first break it up into 2 or more clauses. Yes, and then we join it with a coordinating conjunction. So what we do? The boy heard his father's footsteps and ran away. Yes? Okay, now here you're breaking it up into 2 clauses. One is the boy heard his father's footsteps and the other one ran away. How are you joining it? You're joining it with a coordinating conjunction, that is and. Let's see the next case. The boy ran away when he heard his father's footsteps. Okay, now what are the 2 clauses in this case? The boy ran away and he heard his father's footsteps. How are you joining it? You are joining it with a joining word like when. Therefore, this is a complex sentence. Now, note that in a complex sentence, the independent clause is brought in front. Now let's revise how we interchange one part of speech for another. This is the first part of the lesson. The noun form of a word may have to be changed into its verb form. Example, he accepted our proposal. Proposal is a noun. Now, we can change it this way. He accepted what we proposed, and proposed is the verb. Then another one, Keats had a love for poetry. Here, love is the noun. Keats loved poetry. Loved is the verb. Remember, some words are used both as nouns and as verbs and are still spelled the same way. Okay, let's now see how the noun form of the word is changed into the adjective form. Okay, an example. An object of beauty is a joy forever. Beauty, remember, is a noun. What we do? We have to change it into an adjective. And we write, a beautiful object is a joy forever. Let's now see how the noun and the adjective form of the word can be changed into the adverbial form. Example, he worked with great care. Care is a noun. What you have to do is you have to use the adverb form of care. So you write, he worked very carefully. Carefully is an adverb. You can also change the noun form into the adjective form. So you write, he was very careful in his work. Careful is an adjective. TOO2 and TO2 are to be replaced by so and that. Let's begin with an example. He is too old to work. This is changed into he is so old that he cannot work. Note that TOO2 is replaced with so. We add 3 words in place of TO2 and those words are that, he or the subject and cannot or a negative verb. The reverse process is even simpler. Replace so with TOO2 and replace the 3 words that, the subject and the negative verb with TO2. Thus, he is so proud that he cannot beg changes into he is too proud to beg. Change of narration, changing from direct into indirect speech. This is something we've been doing right from junior classes, changing from direct to indirect and the other way around. Now, indirect speech is the reported speech of what somebody had said earlier, and quoting the exact words of a person is direct speech. Example, he said, comma, open inverted comma, I miss my mother, full stop, close inverted comma. That is direct speech. He said that he missed his mother, full stop, is indirect speech. She said that her teacher had been very kind to her, full stop, is indirect speech. She said, comma, open inverted comma, my teacher has been very kind to me, full stop, close inverted comma is direct speech. Open inverted comma, does the baby eat solid food? Question mark, close inverted comma, the little girl asked her mother, full stop is direct speech. The little girl asked her mother if the baby ate solid food. Full stop. This is indirect speech. Let's revise some basic rules needed for the change of narration. Say, for instance, in direct speech, we use inverted commas, and in indirect speech, we do not use inverted commas. We use words like that, if, whether. Then, in direct speech, if we use present tense, that changes into the past tense in the indirect speech. Okay, I, we, are of the direct speech change into he or she, they, their in indirect speech. Today, tomorrow, this year, last month, they are not used in indirect speech. Instead, we write that day, the next day, the following year, or the previous month. Another lesson that we've been doing since our junior classes is change of voice. Remember, the syntax of a sentence that uses the active voice is subject, verb, object. And the syntax of a sentence using the passive voice is object, verb in the participle form, by, subject. Thus, I love children. Active voice, when we make it passive, it turns into children are loved by me. Another very important transformation. As soon as he heard the news of his father's death, he left for Delhi. No sooner had he heard the news of his father's death than he left for Delhi. Hardly had he heard the news of his father's death when he left for Delhi. Now please note that we are trying to convey the same sense in the three sentences. Only the style of writing is different. Okay, now learn this trick. As soon as changes into no sooner or hardly. He heard changes into had he heard or even to did he hear. Yes? Now, then or when is inserted after the first clause. So, no sooner had he heard the news of his father's death. That is the first clause, and then you add than. Yes? When it is no sooner, we add than. And the remaining part of the sentence remains as it is. He left for Delhi. Let's look at the other case. Hardly had he heard the news of his father's death. The first clause, and then you add when. With hardly, we add when. And the remaining part of the sentence naturally is the same. He left for Delhi. With that, we end our revision.